What is a real man, Rich?
What is a man? It is a biological male that is an adult.
In the war on masculinity, what is a real man?
Well, if you ask, it depends what side you ask, right? I mean, if you ask the side that's waging the war on masculinity, they're going to tell you that anything that is conventionally masculine is potentially or is toxic, isn't it? But it's funny, isn't it, though, that if there's a war or there's a fire or there's policing that's required or you need something, a guy that's big and strong that they call a conventionally masculine man to come and deal with those things, to put out the fires, to deal with the bad guys, to go to the wars and, deal with the evil in the world. But anytime we have peace and calm in society, if you don't like something or the way that it's going for you, it's very easy to say, that guy over there, he's toxic masculinity. Please, don't scare me. I feel very uncomfortable in your presence. Um, there is a war on masculinity today. It's a feature, it's a function of feminism continuing into an area that looks like a supremacy movement to me. I don't think there's any area. I mean, you could ask anybody, whether it's a woman or a visible minority, what are your disadvantages in life today? What is it that white person over there can do that, or that white male over there can do that you can't do as a woman or as a woman of color, for example? And they really struggle to find things, don't they? So I don't think there's any difference in the world today as far as inequalities, especially in modern Western worlds. Some people would even argue that the advantages have tilted in the favor of women, at this stage, especially in areas like family law, right? If you don't believe me, ask anybody that's been divorced in a Western country and find out how fairly the father gets treated versus the mother. There is a strong inequality that plays in the mother's favor. So it seems like it's gotten to the point where it's now moving into a position of a supremacy movement where it's looking for the subjugation and the servitude of men and the continuous apologies of men. We see this all the time on mainstream media and on all these other different platforms where men are apologizing or kissing the feet of people for sins that don't even exist anymore.
Do you think this is because we've had such a good amount of time, decades maybe, of good times? And the whole adage, good times creates weak people.
Yeah.
And weak people create hard times, and hard times create strong people. Do you think that's part of it? Do you think lockdown was part of it? What are your thoughts on why we are where we're at?
Well, I don't think it's any question that we live in a very peaceful time. And human beings are not very peaceful as a species, are we? I've seen plotted infographics over tens of thousands of years that have documented conflict and wars throughout history. And if you can just picture a screen with a bunch of pepper dots off to the left and in recent time off to the right, there's a lot fewer of them. Or if they do appear, they're slightly larger, like you'd see a World War I or a World War II. But throughout history, we really like wars, as a species, and we've been at conflict pretty much throughout history. We live in a very calm time. We have easy access to plentiful calories going to any store. We have easy access to transport anywhere in the world. We have easy access to healthcare, in most places in the world. So safe, clean water. You don't have to worry about turning on your faucet and making yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and getting some kind of intestinal disease. We live in very clean and safe times, and that gives people other things to do with their times. And unfortunately, when you've been dealing with decades of the softening of society, the weakening of the Western male, if you will, and the encouragement of women to become more like men. Like, we live in a time now where women are told that they don't need a man. They can do anything a man can do, if not better. And men are incompetent. They're bumbling fools and idiots. I mean, if you watch any of the Hollywood shows or sitcoms that I did growing up, Family Ties, The Cosby Show, Home Improvement, the father in the show was always portrayed as a bumbling moron, and the mother was the savior of the household. She was the hero. We're just at that place in time where I think that once you see all these things and you start to see the code in the matrix and you understand what's going on, it's a slow, progressive, decade upon decade process of the softening and the weakening of strong Western males. I think the lockdown was a nice test of all that. They wanted to see how far they could go, clearly, because in hindsight, now that we've seen most of the evidence, the experimental jab was neither safe nor effective. The requirement for face coverings was neither safe nor effective. The death rate, or the mortality rate of the COVID virus was very, very low. Basically the same as a common cold, right? But we stood on our dots, we wore the masks, we took the vaccinations, and we did everything that we were told to do, didn't we? But 70% of the population did all that. And there was a small percentage of the population that said, no, it's okay. I'm fine. I mean, I'll stay in my house. I'll stand on your dots so I can get my groceries and I'll do those things. But there's a small percentage of the population that doesn't want to comply with those things. So yeah, there's certainly something going on out there, isn't there?
And you said the code in the matrix. Do you subscribe to this? That, like Andrew Tate says, there's a matrix that's controlling us. Do you subscribe to that?
There's powers that be. Whether you want to call it the Matrix, I think the Matrix is a more convenient term because it's been popularized, since the movie with Keanu Reeves, since Andrew Tate got so popular. So I think the conversation around there's things going on out there that you don't see and that you don't control can be easily distilled down to the Matrix. Sure, let's use that term. I think that's a convenient, easy term for everybody to understand.
And do you think that's good or bad for humanity?
Depends. Do you want to conform and comply, and when the state says jump, you respond with how high? Are you happy with eating bugs? Are you happy with having a social credit score? Then you're going to say it's good for society. But if you value sovereignty, if you value independence, if you value an ability to maneuver, if you value control in your life, then you're going to say no. Right? I mean, if you look at the way that society votes, if you look at the way that culture and most Western populations, these demographics, they're voting for more of the control. They're not voting for more freedom and independence and sovereignty and ownership over their lives, right? They're voting to invite the state and the government in every aspect of their life whenever possible. And again, they're not doing it intentionally. They're not raising their hand and saying, right, I want to get up in the morning and have the government know everything about me, right? It just happens to be that they're falling for those parties for the next election, and that's who they cast their vote for. Some would say maybe they're not voting. There's a lot of arguments between whether or not Biden or Trump was the elected president of the United States. Who cares? But that's who they're running with right now. Look who's who's Canada's prime minister. Look who's running in the UK. Look who's running in France. You go all around the Western countries, and the same thing's happening everywhere.
So as an entrepreneur, Rich, have you found it easier or harder in these times to grow your business and make money?
It's never been easier to grow a business and make money than it is today. So don't listen to anybody that says, oh, it's too hard. There's only so much money out there. All the rich, evil people have taken it all, and you'll never get any because they're horrible. There's money traveling through the internet right now. All you have to do is offer some value and reach out and grab some. Okay. So that's true. But we live in a time where we have more control than ever before, right? If you live in the States or even in certain places, even in Canada, you're going to find that you don't have the freedom to run a business the way that you would have run a business 40, 50 years ago. They keep adding new laws, new legislations, there's new penalties. There's always something new that they want to infuse into your business life. So there's less sovereignty, there's less independence, there's less control over your business than what we had 50 years ago. But on the upside of it, it's never been easier to start a business because you don't need to have a storefront. You don't need bricks and mortar. All you need is an internet connection and the ability to offer value to people. And you can do that from literally anywhere in the world.
And have you evolved your business through this time? Maybe take us back to how your business looked when you started it and how it's evolved now.
So in 2003, I got a package in the collection industry that I worked at here in Canada. I work for Canada's largest collection agency. That's where I learned that you get hired for your resume, but you get fired because of fit in the corporation. So they let me go. They gave me a few dollars and they sent me home. That's when I started up Total Debt Freedom, which became Canada's largest, most successful debt settlement company. We eliminated over $250 million of consumer credit card debt. So to the point of business, it's very easy to get off the ground today. But you will find that as you grow the business, as you get more influence, as you become known, and as you have more impact, companies that oppose you or that might see you as competition will start to do things to eliminate you or to make it harder for you to run your business. With what I was doing, we were so successful at saving money for people with their credit card debt and getting them out of debt rapidly without the damage of bankruptcy or an insolvency. They started to essentially petition the policymakers. This was the banks and the credit card companies. They started to petition the policymakers to change the laws to make it difficult to earn money or to delay the first revenue event. So there's a lot of complex things that happened, but it was a great opportunity, and I'm glad I had the time in the business. I've done the earn out buyout now. My brother runs it, and I essentially run a business today that's a company of one. So I can run this business from anywhere in the world. I mostly sell information or content. If you look at my YouTube channel, my books, my podcast, stuff like that. So I could essentially, if I wanted to, I could get a sailboat and put a Starlink on it, and I could broadcast from the middle of the Pacific Ocean on my way to Fiji. It's entirely possible that you can do that today. So I'm grateful for those opportunities. And it's one of those things that entrepreneurs have to be good at. They have to be good at problem solving and getting these issues out of the way so they can get to the goals. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.